Hi everybody. We are starting Daniel chapter 3 today. Welcome to my living room floor. If a cat pops up, I apologize. Anyway, we just left off where Daniel has been promoted and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have also been promoted because of Daniel's ability to interpret a dream. Now, really quick review from, I guess, like yesterday's post, because I think I posted the video yesterday. The dream that he had basically was a statue of 4 metals, the highest metal being the gold head, which represented Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar. All of this is going to tie into what we're about to read in chapter 3. So grab your Bible, you can listen to me, but grab a pen. It's always good to take notes. So in my Bible, it is titled Nebuchadnezzar's Gold Statue. What a coincidence, right, that he chose to use gold. So it says, the word of God says, King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue, 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to assemble the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the provinces to attend to the dedication of King Nebuchadnezzar's statue that he had set up. So stopping right there. So there's a statue being built. So some version says it's 60 cubits, I believe. It's about 90 feet high. So this thing is 9 stories tall, 9 feet wide. So that's pretty big. Going back to chapter 2, though, we know and we hear that King Nebuchadnezzar is this head of gold. But, you know, as verse 39, chapter 2, verse 39 says, but after you. So he might already be having it. This is a me thing, right? Not a Bible thing, but a me thing. He might already be having it in his head that, oh, someone's going to come after me. Somebody is going to come and conquer me. I'm the head of gold. I'm the one in charge. I'm going to let it be known. So he builds a statue that's 90 feet high. Interesting that he chose a statue, right? Like, that's literally what he was just dreaming of. And instead of having a statue of 4 metals, he has this one giant gold statue. Now, imagine how much gold that must have taken. The Bible doesn't say if it was, gold plated or if it was made 100% out of gold, but either which way, that would have been a lot, right? But he could afford it. He conquered, tons of empires. This man could afford it. And he's a little full of himself, and he creates a giant gold statue in his own honor. And he calls all the political leaders, advisors, wise men to come and worship his statue. Verse 3. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all rulers of all the provinces assembled for the dedication of the statue the king had set up. And they stood before the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So if you can remember from chapter 2, we have 3 characters that were just thrusted into the throne. Daniel said, hey, I don't want to be the province of this area. Give it to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So here we have one of the most famous Bible stories about to happen. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and the fiery furnace. Let's continue to read. Verse 4. A herald loudly proclaimed, people of every nation and language. Because remember, he had exiled people from all over the place. So there's people from all over the place. People of every nation and language, you are commanded. This is a command. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and drum, every kind of music, you are to fall on your face and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. But whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. So I always tell the kids, and every one of my kids, hi. But I always tell the kids, like, we take stories like this for granted because we know the end, right? We know the result. If we've heard this, maybe some of us don't, right? But a lot of us heard this in Sunday school if we used to go to Sunday school when we were kids. But I need you to kind of take a step back, and I need you to imagine that you didn't know the ending, because Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not know the ending. All they knew was, if I don't bow down to this dumb, huge statue, I'm going to be thrown into a fiery furnace. So they had to make a choice here. Verse 7, I'm going to read it again. Therefore, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and every kind of music, people from every nation and language fell down and worshipped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So when this music went on, everybody fell. Everybody fell. So I want, like, I guess a reflective question. If you were put in this situation, let's say if you're a parent, if you have a wife at home, if you have babies at home, and you were put in this situation, even if you didn't fully agree with it, would you have fallen on your face and worshiped a statue to a false god? Let's continue. Verse 8. Some Chaldeans took this occasion to come forward and maliciously accuse the Jews. Remember, the Chaldeans were from the area, and they are now accusing the Jews that were from the area that, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel were exiled from. And they said to King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. So they're fluffing this guy up, right? May the king live forever. You as king have issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music must fall down and worship the gold statue. Whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. So they're saying, remember when you said that? Remember that? Remember how you said that, like, if they don't do that, then there's going to be consequences? There are some Jews that you have appointed to the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these men have ignored you, the king, and they do not serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up. So they're kind of throwing these boys under the bus. Well, they're not boys at this point. At this point, they're men. In a furious rage, the Bible says that he's furious. In a furious rage, Nebuchadnezzar gave orders to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar asked them, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, is it true that you don't serve my gods or worship the gold statue I've set up? Now, if you're ready, when you hear the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, fall down and worship the statue I made. But if you don't worship it, you will immediately be thrown into a blazing fire. So I'm thinking, this Daniel thing just happened, right? This Daniel and the dream and all that stuff. He knows that there is a God. The king must know that there is a God who's all powerful and knows all things. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how full of yourself are you, Nebuchadnezzar, that you so immediately choose to forget that, and you're going to condemn these people? I'm saying this because I can't believe what's about to happen. So, continuing. It says, let's go all the way back to verse 15. Now, if you're ready, he's telling them, he's threatening them. If you're ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, fall down and worship the statue I made. But if you don't worship it, you will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. And who is the God who could rescue you from my power? He shouldn't have said that. He basically said that he was greater. He was more powerful than any God. There's only one true living God. And he's saying, I'm better than that guy. So it says, at this point, I'd be freaking out. I'm not gonna lie. There's no point in lying. God knows the truth. I'd probably consider bowing down at this point. Like, the flame is right there. I can see it. I'm in front of the king. It's awkward. I would probably consider it. Yeah, call me a bad Christian. I would probably consider it, at the very least. And I'm sure a lot of other people would too. But let's see what these men did, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they're in it, and they're living it, and they don't know the end of the story, and they don't know that in the end, everything's going to be okay. And they've just basically been threatened and made to feel very, very small, I would imagine, because he's literally saying, who is the God who could rescue you from my power? Verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer to this question. We don't need to tell you who's the God that can rescue us. Verse 17, if the God we serve exists, then he can rescue us from this furnace of blazing fire. And he can rescue us from the power of you, the king. So he's saying the God that we serve, he can do the things that you're saying he can't. He can do it. Verse 18, and this is the part you need to stop what you're doing and listen to me. Verse 18, but even if he does not rescue us, but even if he doesn't, we want you as king to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up. Wow. They're saying, we have a God that can work miracles. We have a God that can heal. We have a God who can show up. We have a God that can rescue. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to follow you, and we're going to choose to follow him. That is courage. That is bravery. beyond, like, I want that kind of faith. Where does that kind of courage come from? So if you can remember, back in chapter 1, we talked about, you know, when they denied the food that Nebuchadnezzar gave them. That was a small act, but that was where their integrity, their character, and their courage was born. And now they're standing in front of this king, and I'm sure they're terrified. I'm sure they know what's coming. But their faith is shining through it. And a lot of people can walk around and say, like, oh, well, if God was real, my grandpa wouldn't die. Or if God was real, I wouldn't have cancer. If God was real, I wouldn't have depression. If God was real, XYZ, like, you'd be healed, right? But there's a lot of confusion that goes on between belief and faith. Yeah, we can believe that God can do things. We can believe that God can heal, God can cure, God can whatever. But faith is trusting in God's plan over our plan. Yeah, God, I would like it if I didn't have anxiety. That'd be really great if I wasn't depressed right now. I'm talking for myself. But I believe that God can do those things, but I have the faith that God is allowing me to go through this season for his perfect plan. My plan isn't perfect. My plan would have blown up this earth, like, you know, from the moment I was born. But faith is knowing that even if he doesn't rescue us, we're still gonna follow him because we trust him. So let's keep on reading a little bit before we finish up today. So let's see how Nebuchadnezzar handles this. And it says, Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he gave the orders to heat the furnace 7 times more than customary. So it was already hot. It was already ready to kill. But now it's 7 times hotter. Verse 20, and he commanded some of the best soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the furnace of blazing fire. So these men, in their trousers, robes, and head coverings, and other clothes, were tied up and thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. Since the king's command was so urgent and the furnace was so hot, the raging flames killed the men who carried Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up. The flames were so hot that when the men got close to it, they died because of the heat. And it says, and these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell, bound into the furnace of blazing fire. So a lot of us already know how this story ends, but I encourage you to come back and we can finish up chapter 3 together, and we can have a little bit more insight of who is the God that these men believed in. Bye, guys.